Good evening, everyone. Today we are back with our eternally amazing sessions with experts, and it is the episode one. And we are proud to have amongst us to be India's first gay judge, Saurabh Kripal. Though Saurav's name is very famous among the UPSC aspirants, still I would like to give a small introduction. Saurabh Kripal, after studying physics at St. Stephen's College in Delhi, read law at the University of Oxford and did his master's in law at the University of Cambridge. He did a brief stint with the United Nations in Geneva before returning to Delhi, where he has been practicing at the Supreme Court for well over 2 decades, having appeared for a variety of clients from Anil Ambani to the Navteej Singh Johar case. He has also written various important and amazing books, some of which we will try to discuss today. Welcome, sir, to the community.
Thank you for
Yes.
thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to speaking to people who will eventually go on to become the backbone of this country.
Sure. Yeah, so beginning with your new book itself, The 15 Judgments Which Shaped the Financial Landscape. So we would like to know how actually you chose those 15 judgments which you thought are the path breaking. Why not other judgments? And if you could actually tell a few of those.
Right. See, uh, of course, it is true that many judgments have shaped the financial landscape of India. So when you make any selection, there is bound to be a case that certain judgments that you think are important, others will not, and equally vice versa, which others think important, you think not. One thing that was important to me was to choose judgments which affect the macroeconomic landscape of India. So, not necessarily judgments that affect finances of individuals. So, for instance, there is a case of HUF property where women have been held to be co-partners. Now, obviously, in a matter like that, where the Supreme Court says that women can inherit money, it will affect the financial landscape of that particular woman or that particular family, but it will not have a larger impact on the country per se. So that was one important thing for me, is to choose a macroeconomic area. Secondly, what was important was to have a sense of 15 judgments that reflected how the judiciary, the economics, and the politics of this country has changed from 1950 till today. Because each judgment that is given is a reflection of the time it was given in. So, for instance, as you said, you asked me to speak about some judgments. The very first judgment I speak about is the judgment in Rajeshwar Singh's case, which is a case, Kameshwar Singh's case, which was a case about the right to property and the abolition of zamindaris. So, as you all know, in 1950, when the constitution came, there was also a lot of zamindari that existed, and there was a movement to remove, to give land to the uh, people who were the tillers. That was a attempt. So for that, zamindari had to be abolished, and to abolish zamindaris, you would have had to pay the zamindars compensation under Article 31 of the Constitution of India, which provided for compensation. So when the High Court of Bihar ruled in favor of the zamindars and said that the act of actually giving them minimal compensation was unconstitutional, and that was really in keeping with the laissez-faire conception of the economy in 1950s. The judges were all laissez-faire at that point of time. On the other hand, the politicians and the Constituent Assembly was far more socialist and left-wing, because in 1950 it was the freedom fighters who had fought the British and had desires of reforming the country and giving land to the landless people. They were in charge of Parliament and the Constituent Assembly. So they were not happy with this judgment. And immediately, the first amendment to the Constitution of India came into being. So even before elections happened under the Constitution of India, because the November, as you know, we just had the Constitution Day on the 26th. That is the day the Constitution was actually adopted by the Constituent Assembly. And under that, there would have been elections in the future. But without waiting for elections also, the Constituent Assembly itself amended the Constitution and took away the right to property, because they said that as long as this right to property exists, we cannot have our agenda of zamindari abolition done. So that's one thing. And because of that judgment and the removal of the right to property, we have seen that today the constitution has no right to property. Ultimately, in 1976, it was removed. In 1978, it was removed finally. So that's one judgment. Then the times changed. The country became more left wing. Then we had judgment of, say, for instance, the Bangalore water supply case, which was a case about how industry is defined, how workers are defined. So there was a distinctly left-wing movement, and Justice Krishna Iyer, who was a very prominent judge of the mid 70s. He was actually a politician in Kerala. He was a minister in the communist government who then resigned from the party and was elevated to the Supreme Court at a very young age, had very left-wing ideals. And he gave a judgment which said that all industries, even if they're not traditionally thought of as industries, would be covered within the definition of the Industrial Disputes Resolution Act. So municipalities, corporations, clubs, hospitals, all these would be covered by the IDRA, Industrial Dispute Resolution Act. And the effect of that is that if you're covered under the IDRA, then you as a worker have a lot of rights. You can't be retrenched, you can't be fired. All these rights were given to workers. So by expansive definition of industry, you got a lot of people who are not workers otherwise. I mean, even say a hospital, a doctor is not a worker, but he's today covered under the IDRA. So that was the philosophy of the 70s and the left-wing philosophy. From that, we then came to the liberalization of 1990s, early 90s, after the financial crisis. And then we had another line of cases which became more and more right-wing. So, for instance, we had the judgment of Balco, which was a judgment where the attempt of the government to privatize Balco, which is a government-owned company, was challenged by the workmen again of Balco and certain other people. And the Supreme Court upheld the action of the government to privatize Balco and said that it is a matter of economic policy. And in matters of economic policy, the court will not interfere. So that is why the court did not interfere in this matter and upheld the rights. So this was really a swing from the extreme right, laissez-faire attitude of the judges to the left in Bangalore water supply, back to the right of a judicial hands-off approach in Balco. So there was this swinging thing that is happening. And same thing, I suppose, continues today. So more recent judgments, for instance, the judgment which is uphold the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, the IBC, which was promulgated in 2016 as an act, that was upheld recently by the Supreme Court, saying that the government again has a right to choose its economic policy, and basically affirming the decision of the government to go and choose a particular format of how to reform companies, how to solve bankruptcies. So that is how I chose these books, these judgments.
Yeah, thanks for the historical trajectory also along with the ideologies going through that period. So the coming to the second book, which was Sex and Supreme Court. So I want to ask, yeah, Supreme Court has actually brought in the rights of LGBT and transgenders, but what happens at the very subordinate courts? What happens is they are not very properly implemented, and also the sensitization is lacking because we saw yesterday, matlab, days before we saw the Chandrachud sir say that we have to bring the just courts to the people. So in that context, the Supreme Court may broaden the idea, but actual implementation and actual follow-up is actually lacking. So what do you suggest for this, meeting this gap of action versus constructing rights in a bigger format?
See, the disconnect between what the Supreme Court says, either in its judgments or the judges say in the seminars that they hold often, and what is the ground reality is enormous. You mentioned one particular instance of it, which is the rights of the sexual minorities. But I'll go further and give you the example of another big thing that is making the news these days, which is, say, the right to bail. The courts have repeatedly said, from pretty much the first few cases that reached the Supreme Court, that it is bail, not jail, which is the rule. That was always the intention of the Constitution. That is the intention really of the criminal procedure code, as we see that bail should be the norm. On the other hand, we see repeatedly that there is no bail which is granted by the trial courts, and the matter has to go all the way often to the Supreme Court before bail is finally granted. So there is a disconnect between what is happening at the Supreme Court level and the trial court level. So what you need for this is two or three things. First, I would say is you need training. You have a National Judicial Academy at Bhopal. You need to invite more and more people from the subordinate judiciary to that academy and give them training sessions. You need to also get the high court judges to train and the lower court judges and say that giving bail or deciding in a particular manner which is uh, gender sensitive is the norm, for which of course we will also have to train the high court judges, because just because they're in the high court doesn't mean they are any more sensitive to the issues of the sexual minorities than the subordinate courts. So that also the training needs to be at the level of both the high court as well as the trial court. And another thing that will have to be done is that the Supreme Court will have to continuously monitor and lay down guidelines on issues relating to sexual minorities as well as bail and other issues which we can talk about. So one odd judgment will not change anything. You need constant monitoring and constant supervision of the Supreme Court through its judgments and through the judges speaking out. This is not a problem that is going to be solved in one go, right? This is a problem that has taken a long, long time to be uh, established. So to remove this problem will also take its own time. So you need to begin slowly. Can't expect miracles. I don't think we should. Uh, Another thing, I suppose, what will also be required is some kind of when you mark a subordinate judge and say that how about their promotion, etc. There must be a column about their judgments, case sensitivity as well. So judges would be pushed really to stay sensitive to issues regarding all genders and sexual minorities, both, and many other classes of people who are traditionally underrepresented in the subordinate judiciary. So maybe that can be also be done. But ultimately, the responsibility also lies with the citizens of India to make sure that you actually bring up cases which affect uh, your fundamental rights. Often that happens in the High Court or the Supreme Court, but the daily interaction that people have is with the subordinate judiciary. So if you move a case, then the judge will decide it and be forced to decide it. If you keep quiet and suffer an injustice, then you will not. Simple as that.
Indeed. And when you mentioned that even High Court judges, so I remembered the case of Madras High Court judge who took the training and then gave the very profound path-breaking judgment. So yeah,
Correct.
moving on to next, you have been recommended by the Supreme Court
Can I say
Collegium.
one thing? Sorry. I'm not. This is a UPSC discussion space.
Yeah,
Can we not discuss let's discuss matters that interest you people rather than my personal. I'm not here to discuss that. So
that is actually related to
that's up to you. But
Collegium
I'm not going
itself.
to. I
Yeah,
this is not a UPSC gathering for these issues. Please stick to the topic.
yeah, only. Yeah, only
Okay.
topic. So, yeah, not that
Okay.
I will ask. Of
All
course,
right.
I'm not
Okay.
asking that.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah, I was asking whether the collegium system is relevant to the needs
Ah,
of judiciary today.
okay. All right. Uh, I personally believe that the collegium system is a flawed system. Uh, it is not there in our constitution. Article 124, 124 does not mention it. That there is no really. It's an imposition or interpretation by the Supreme Court of what the Constitution means, right? So, and also I've seen in practice that the collegium system has not really worked very well. It is very opaque. It is no one knows why certain judges are appointed, certain judges are transferred. There is no transparency. There is no discussion. So there is a problem. So there is a problem of opaqueness, and I also think there is a problem of democratic deficit. I am not one of those people who thinks the government is always wrong, and I'm not one of those people who always thinks that the government automatically will choose someone who is not uh, independent. The government is also interested in independent judges, and for the courts to think that they are the only ones who have the capacity or the desire to choose independent judges is wrong. So I think some amount of input of the executive in the appointment process is a good thing, and the collegium system is not necessarily a good thing. And therefore, I think with the judgment that came striking down the NJAC, the National Judicial Appointment Commission, was needs to be reconsidered.
Sure, we can open up the stage for some questions if anybody wants to. So, yeah, Shivam is asking whether share some methods regarding time management and your experience regarding how to increase productivity in life.
Yes, I
I
think
think,
that's an interesting question, and you know, I that is something that was important to me because I am a full-time lawyer, but I'm also writing my books. I'm doing my activism, and I think it's one very important thing that I have found is to prioritize. You can't do everything in life, so you have to prioritize very clearly as to what is it that you want to do, and then you have to plan uh, that which you think is of the least priority, rather than trying to give it minimal time, remove it from your possible scheme of things of what you want to do. Uh, and then in your priority, dedicate a certain fixed time every day. It's, you know, consistency is more important than brilliance. If you carry on working continuously and every day when you wake up and you say, from 8 to 10 I will do this, 10 to X I will do that, plan your day, stick to it for X number of days. That is what is going to give you productivity. Productivity is hard work more than anything else, and and focusing on truly what is important, nothing else. There is a fantastic book called 4,000 Weeks, which says that the average lifespan of a human being is 4,000 weeks. And we think, you know, what is 4,000 weeks? It's nothing. It goes down so quickly. And so the idea is there, you realize you have limited amount of time, not just in a day, but even on the planet. Uh, so in that, you must prioritize, you must choose what is truly relevant and important and focus on that. And that's the trick for productivity that I found is focusing on the truly important things and giving that time before anything else.
sure. Anybody else wants to ask anything?
I think I've answered everyone's questions, it seems, huh? Good.
Resistant, I guess, to ask.
Oh, no worries. If you want, you can get all your questions. Please WhatsApp them to me or to send them a telegram or email them. I'll see if I can try to answer them. That might be another way forward. Yeah. And I wish all of
Sure,
you the
sure.
luck for your UPSC ambitions. That is a great way that you can serve the country. And I'm sure we're all in safe hands with you there. Thank you.
Welcome. Thanks a lot for joining the session. If anybody has any questions, they can ask even now. Otherwise, we are winding up the session. Wait. Yeah. So one question is, sir, Indian laws are mostly based on the 19th century common English laws. Do you think they should go away now, considering social models of Indian Asian society is different?
Well, see, the different kinds of laws. Laws relating to morality, yes, need constant upgradation. So, a penal code framed in 1860 may not be relevant today. So, for instance, Section 377, which is the case of homosexuality, adultery, these matters were relevant in 1860. Today, the 21st century, they're not relevant. On the other hand, there are other provisions which are timeless and come from the idea and conception of what it means to be a human. So the same 1860 Indian Penal Code also prohibits murder. Now we're not going to do away with murder being a crime just because it was made a crime in 1860, right? So we have to examine each law on its own merits. You need constant examination of what the laws are. You can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Some laws become stay relevant. They must be kept. And some laws do, with the passage of time, become irrelevant. We have a law commission in place, which is meant to examine just this. Unfortunately, it does not often do that job. So we need a constant review of all the laws which are relevant. Uh, for instance, the Contract Act, uh, certain concepts in it are timeless again. So they were based on the common law of India. So offer, acceptance, etc. Those fundamental commercial concepts stay. On the other hand, you have certain areas of specific relief, etc., which because commerce and nature of commerce has changed, you need to amend that. So I would say constantly revisit the laws and change that not what needs to be done. But don't think that everything just because it came in the 19th century is bad. Uh, those are timeless. Some of them are timeless concepts which will never change.
Yeah, PS, go ahead.
Hi, sir. Thanks for sharing your valuable views. So,
Hmm.
my question is, what is more important, hard work or smart work?
Well, I think they are both necessary and sufficient. So it's hard work is necessary, smart work is sufficient sometimes, but generally no. Even the smartest people, and I suppose when you by smart work, I presume you mean working smartly rather than being an intelligent person, because that is out of your control, whether you're smart or not, right? That's God given. So as I said in my first answer also, smart work is more important than anything else, but hard work is smart work. Uh, there is very little that you can accomplish without working hard. There are no easy fixes. You know, a lot of you young people see some of the most successful people around, see the lifestyle that they live, and often is seen that, oh, if that person can do it, so can I. And you know, they in 2 minutes they will charge so much, or in half an hour work they charge so much. You don't see the amount of hard work that has gone into getting to a particular place. So I'd say smart work is more important, but hard work is smart work. Just carry on doing to the utmost of your capacity all that you can do, and the rest is fate. It's out of your hands. But you do what you can do. Don't think that I'm just because I'm working smartly, therefore I don't need to work hard. That doesn't exist. There you will have to work hard, because if you are working smartly, I can assure you there are 100 other people outside who are also working smartly. So to get that edge, you will have to combine the two, smart work and hard work.
Spartacus, now your turn.
Sir, my one question is for you that what should be the idea of India for the coming decades? That India actually wanted to achieve its position at the global level. What should be
Mhm.
that idea that will make India a superpower or a global leader?
Yeah. See, your question has two answers. What should be the ideal of India and how should we achieve it? The ideal of India, you've already answered, is that to be a superpower. But before we want to be a superpower, I would say that we must fulfill our constitutional promises made in 1950. That has not changed. There were four promises made in the preamble: justice, equality, liberty, and fraternity. Each of these limbs in the Constitution must be fulfilled. Justice, liberty, and equality are three things which ultimately lead to fraternity, which means unity and integrity of the country. So we must fulfill constitutional ideals, and it is only through the fulfillment of those constitutional ideals in the preamble that we can hope to make India a superpower. There is no point having a superpower when we have poor people, we have underprivileged people, there is inequality between sexes. So all these inequalities must be redressed. And then, no doubt, with the innate goodness of the Indian public and our business sense, we will become a superpower. So, that I hope answers your second question also, as to how to become a superpower, is to ensure that everyone gets to live a life of dignity. Everyone gets equal opportunities in forwarding and promoting their career, business, or whatever profession. We have a huge talent pool of young people. We have what is so often called the demographic dividend. We have to learn to utilize that. But before we utilize that demographic dividend, we have to have some minimum investment in education and improving the human quality of living of that people before we can reap that dividend so as to become the superpower. China became a superpower in a way. It is becoming a superpower. It's on its way because it has been utilizing its population wisely, and I think we have a capacity to overtake China because we have a very literate population. I think we just need to invest a bit more in human capital.
Somebody is asking how to handle pressure under difficult situations. You must be going through that in courts every day. So yeah.
Well, you probably try meditation or something. You find something that relaxes you, and set aside some time every day to do things which relax you. Third is put things in perspective. That which seems so important, so terribly difficult just now, with the passage of time, nothing stays difficult. You look back in 5 years ago, there must be things that you thought were going to ruin your life, and today you won't even remember what they are. So just remember that everything passes. Then, in certain instances, when you need help, don't be shy to ask for help. A lot of people have mental health crises. There are professionals who can help you. If you don't have access to professionals, reach out to your friends and family. Don't keep anything bottled up inside. That is the worst part of it. There is no point suffering alone. You don't get any prizes for being a brave person. A brave person is a person who shares. So when you are feeling under pressure, go and speak to a friend and say, I'm feeling this pressure and I can't do this. And finally, maybe just take some time off and say that maybe I'm having so much pressure, I'll take a day off, 2 days off, or some time off. Keep your mind off things, and then try to come back to it. But most important is share your perceptions, share your feelings, your ideas with everybody else. You can't do this alone.
Sure. Some questions are popping up regarding how to handle the identity as an LGBT identity in India and progress so much in career. That is like,
See, this country is changing. I think people have to stop worrying about the fact that they are LGBT and thinking that's going to hamper their career growth. Maybe it will, maybe it will not. But frankly, if you are a member of a sexual minority, you're a member of the LGBT community, you owe it to yourself to come out, because a life which is led to the closet is not a happy life. Uh, if you want your loved ones to fully understand who you are, you have an obligation to come out to them and tell them your reality. And even if you can't come out to your family, I understand a lot of people come from families where they can't tell everybody because the families may not understand. Find a community, find a set of people who will understand, not just these dating apps. Those are meant for hookups or whatever else. Find a community. In every town now, there are organizations which deal with this. So that's so. And once you have that support of friends, and if you're lucky, family, then coming out is not that difficult. And increasingly, I'm seeing from when I started my career in the mid 90s till today, in the last 30 years, there has been a dramatic shift in how professions and professionals and even bureaucrats react to people from sexual minorities. There is a lot more acceptance, but acceptance will only happen if you put yourself out there. Yeah, people like me have fought to bring about change, so that people like you can then go out and live freely. You then have the responsibility to live freely and try to make change, so that generations who come after you can live more freely. Live without fear, uh, because that is the only way to live.
thanks. And I would like to mention also, like the sir has played the profound role in the Navdeep Singh Johar case, also associated with the Humsafar Trust. So one question has come up. Uh, so if you have time for some questions, or
I will have precisely 3 more minutes, then I have to go, but that's all right.
sure,
Let's just
sure.
see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Let's have two more questions then. But
All right, two
the
more questions.
yeah. Often common people are unaware of our constitution and laws. What are the ways that do you suggest to make them aware of our laws in positive way?
Right. See, that this is a big problem of legal literacy in our country, that people just don't know what the Constitution says or what the law says. Now, one very simple way would be to translate the Constitution into vernacular languages, into the mother tongues of various people, and then have them distributed. But the problem with that is that a lot of what the Constitution says is judge made, right? When you read Article 21, which says that no one should be deprived of their life without the due process of law, that means nothing unless you know the 1000 cases that have come, which means what does life mean? Life means environment, life means all kinds of things. So you will need to understand also uh, not just the Constitution, but also the cases that have made the Constitution what it is. For that, you have no option but to either read books on law or maybe books like mine. I'm not trying to get you to purchase my book. Please go to the library and pick it up if it's there. But there are many books like that which make you familiarize yourself with what the law is. And it is your responsibility, really, as citizens also, to try to make the effort. The tools are there. Today, you have the internet. If you don't understand what a particular article means, you simply have to type in, and there are many free resources like Indian Qanun and other websites with free judgments. So familiarize yourself, read what they are, and try to read textbooks, because that will teach you what the law is. Reading the bare act is very difficult. You will not understand what it means. You need to pick up some textbooks. There are some simple textbooks which are written. So that's the way forward, I think.
Also, this is last question. We'll have tail question to this also. So, is it time for Article 20? I guess not, yeah, 29 and 30 to add sexual minorities to the definition of minorities. And combining to it, I want to ask a question that when we talk about gay marriages, then we are also thinking of legalizing them under the Special Marriage Act. But when we do so, we are also depriving people for no doing it under the maybe the religious laws itself. No, if we have to bring under their ambit also.
See, as regards the first part, Article 29 and 30 is specifically for religious minorities. So there is no question of including sexual minorities within Article 29 and 31. On the other hand, Article 15, which says that the state shall not discriminate on the ground of sex, has, in the Navte Johar judgment, been expanded to include sexuality. So while Article 29 and 30 will protect religious minorities, Article 15 is the correct article in which sexual minorities will be protected. Because if sex equals sexuality, as has been held in the judgment, then discrimination on the ground of sexuality is prohibited under Article 15. So that's one answer straight away on Article 29 and 30. Then on the question of same-sex marriage under personal laws, look, any two people can choose to get married under the Special Marriage Act. You don't have to be of a different religion, right? So if you're two Hindus, go ahead and please get married under the Special Marriage Act. There is nothing stopping you from that. If you want a religious ceremony, you convince your local temple to have a religious ceremony and get married in the temple or in uh, the mosque or church, whoever will take you. We cannot compel other religions to accept you, right? Uh, the way I cannot have other religions compel me to say don't get married. You have to coexist and live together. And if some religion says, and there is a right to religion, 2930, and they say, no, we don't think under our law, personal laws, you should get married. I will say to them, all right, but don't deny me the right to get married per se. And that is why the Special Marriage Act will come in and say that even if some religion doesn't want it, people should be free to do what they want to do, right? I can't force myself on another religion. Another religion cannot force its norms on me. So there is a live and let live attitude in this, and that is the only positive way to be.
Thanks a lot for taking out your time from the busy schedule and ending on such a positive note. We
Yeah,
would like to host you another time also when we
certainly.
get time.
Please do.
Sure.
Please do.
Thanks a lot.
It was so good to see you.
Namaste.
Thank you very much. Bye bye. Bye.